Some of the most famous crabs aren't crabs at all. Take king crabs. They look like crabs, move like crabs, act like crabs, but genetically, they're closer to hermit crabs. Their ancestors used to live inside shells, but over time, they evolved their own armor, flattened out, lost the need for borrowed protection, and became crab-like. Same outcome, completely different path. Then there are porcelain crabs, delicate, fragile, almost glass-like shells. They look the part, but behave very differently. And once again, they're not true crabs. This keeps happening across the tree of life. Independent lineages, all arriving at the same design. And this didn't just start recently. Fossil records show crab-like creatures appearing even before true crabs existed, which means evolution was experimenting with this shape long before it perfected it. Some of those early versions failed. They didn't have strong enough shells, or efficient movement, or stable environments. Many went extinct, but the design itself never disappeared, because evolution just kept rebuilding it again and again. So if this body plan is so effective, will everything eventually become a crab? Short answer, no. But also, not entirely impossible, because carcinization mostly happens within crustaceans. They already have the right starting blueprint: shells, segmented bodies, flexible limbs. Other animals, not so much. A lion isn't going to flatten into a crab. A human isn't suddenly growing a shell and sideways legs. Different environments, different constraints, different evolutionary paths. But here's something interesting. Even outside crustaceans, we still see similar ideas. Take stingrays. They aren't crabs, not even close, but their bodies are wide, flat, and built for stability near the ocean floor. Or sharks and dolphins. Completely unrelated, yet shaped almost identically for speed. Because physics doesn't give you infinite options, it gives you a handful of designs that actually work, and life keeps rediscovering them. So carcinization isn't some universal destiny. It's not that everything wants to become a crab, it's that under certain conditions, becoming crab-like is simply one of the best solutions available. And evolution doesn't care about originality, it cares about what works. So no, you're not turning into a crab anytime soon. You're safe, for now. But somewhere out there, in some ocean, in some quiet corner of the world, there's a creature slowly changing, flattening, hardening, adapting, taking the first steps on a very familiar path, and given enough time, it might just become another crab. You are slowly evolving into a crab. Not today, not tomorrow. But the idea isn't as absurd as it sounds, because out in the wild, this is already happening over and over again. Across millions of years, completely different animals that were never crabs to begin with, have independently evolved into something that looks almost exactly like one. Take a look at this. This isn't a crab. This isn't a crab either, and neither is this. But give evolution enough time, and they all start moving in the same direction, flattening out, pulling their bodies inward, growing harder shells, shortening their tails, until eventually they become something that looks unmistakably like a crab. This phenomenon is so consistent, so repeatable, that science gave it a name: carcinization, literally meaning crabification, the tendency of life to evolve into a crab-like form. And yes, it sounds ridiculous, but the deeper you look into nature, the harder it becomes to ignore, because this doesn't just happen once, it happens again and again and again. Different species, different oceans, different time periods, no direct relation, and yet They all converge on the same design, so now the question isn't, is this real? The question is, why crabs? Why does evolution keep choosing this shape? And more importantly, what's stopping everything else from becoming one too? At first glance, this whole idea feels like a joke. You've probably seen the memes. Crabs as the final form of evolution, the ultimate life form. It's funny, but scientifically, it's not entirely wrong, because what we're really looking at here is something called convergent evolution. This is when completely unrelated organisms face similar environmental challenges and independently evolve the same solutions. Different starting points, same ending. We see this everywhere. Sharks and dolphins look similar, not because they're related, but because that streamlined body is the most efficient way to move through water. Wings evolved separately in birds, bats, and insects. And in the deep ocean, even squids have independently grown massive in size for survival. So when evolution keeps repeating a design, it usually means one thing: that design works. So, what exactly makes a crab a crab? Because here's the thing, most animals that look like crabs aren't actually crabs at all. They're imposters, evolutionary copycats. A crab-like body follows a very specific blueprint. It's wide, flat, low to the ground. This keeps the center of gravity stable, making it incredibly hard to flip over, and in an environment full of waves, currents, and predators, that stability is everything. That flattened shape also lets it squeeze into tight spaces under rocks, between crevices, places where predators can't reach. Then there's the shell. Not just armor, but a full-body shield. Unlike creatures like lobsters or shrimp, which have long exposed segments, a crab's entire structure is compact and protected. It's like evolution turned the animal itself into a tank. And then come the legs, short, powerful, precise, perfect for quick, controlled movement, especially sideways, which might look strange but actually allows them to dodge threats while still facing them. Everything about this design screams one thing: survival efficiency. But this leads to an interesting problem. If this body is so effective, why doesn't everything evolve this way? Why not lobsters? They're strong. They're armored. They've survived millions of years too. So why don't we see lobsterization? The answer is surprisingly simple: structure. Lobsters have long, segmented bodies with large tails. That design is harder to modify. You can't just flatten it without breaking how it functions. Try to fold that tail under the body like a crab, and the entire system stops working. Crabs, on the other hand, start off compact, flexible, easier to reshape. Their bodies can widen, shorten, harden, and adjust without losing functionality. Once something becomes crab-shaped, it's incredibly stable. And reversing that, much harder. Carcinization is easy. Going backwards is not. Now here's where it gets even stranger. True crabs, the ones we actually classify as crabs, aren't even the only ones doing this.